everyone. Welcome to the We Whistle podcast. I'm Stacey Luces, your host, with my co-host Denise Williams. Boy, have we got a treat for you. We are here with Justin Elliott.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, so we met Justin a couple weeks ago. It feels like years ago, but we can't wait to dive into what Justin does, the way that he does it, his story from being one of the penultimate DJs rocking out in the Caribbean and the world to doing something completely unexpected. And I don't want to give it away. I want to keep you in a little bit of suspense. So we've been talking a lot about the sort of viral moment the Caribbean writ large is having. Not only, we've always been viral for our vibes, obviously, and our culture and our music and all of those things. But now we're having a moment where people are actually paying attention more so than ever to the potential of the Caribbean as a unit, as an economic bloc. And when I say potential, not only the intellectual capital, but the economic potential and all of the things, the innovation, the way that we go from hustle culture to building infrastructure. And that's one of the things we're going to dig into a lot today. I also want to say Denise and I deserve like a huge medal or whatever trophy because we hosted our inaugural Capital Circle last night, and we had about 20 whistlers from all over. No, I wouldn't say all over, but at least from 8 countries. Mm-hmm. Some of them on Zoom, some of them in person. Nice. We straggled ourselves to bed at 1 a.m.
Because they didn't want to leave, right?
Right. So excuse us if we are dragging, but we still look cute. So it's okay. And Justin also came in fresh to death.
Yes. Fly in the studio.
For
Justin.
sure.
They look like people's children.
Yes. We talk about this tension a lot, that many of us in the Caribbean diaspora have built our successes individually. We've gotten to places where we've earned the title. I always jokingly say none of us have less than 9 degrees and the best certifications. We are now investing not only in ourselves and our health in ways that we have never done before, but we are also looking for opportunities to collectively grow 3 specific things that we talk about here in the We Whistle podcast, which is our wealth and not only our money, even though that's important, but our health wealth, our relationship wealth, sort of the boundaries that we're pushing at, our mindset, right? We're going to therapy. We're talking about wellness. We're doing yoga, breath work. And so the other thing we want to accelerate is community. And not only community in the sense of the vibes, even though that's important. I don't know about you, but Buju Banton's new song, Butterflies,
oh
is
my
like
God,
my
she's been on
favorite
Butterfly
jam.
all night.
Totally hyped myself up about that. But we also want to build community in a way that's different. We want to pool our intellectual capital together. We want to pool our access together. We want to pool things that have never been collectively harnessed with a strategic agenda to move things forward in a way that we've never done before. And we also are thinking about legacy. Every single person, hundreds of people we've talked to in the last year, my earring just fell out. I feel like that girl that went viral.
Yeah.
Remember?
You know what?
Anyway, I'll leave it out.
You leave it out.
And you know, it's just going to be a trend now. And so talking about legacy in a way that hasn't been talked about before, not only from the institutional legacy, like your name on a building or leaving something for your children, but it really is the impact that you're having not only on yourself and maybe breaking generational like boundaries, trauma, whatever, but what are you doing to give back to communities, to the region, to each other? And that's really what we want to talk about and where we want to sort of harness the conversation today. And I'll hand it over to Dens while I fix my earring.
Yeah. But can I tell you, though, you're really setting a trend. You look amazing this morning. This is my co-host and my co-founder look amazing this morning. Big her up in your comments, please.
Yes, big up. I'm trying to see right now. Did you guys coordinate the shoes?
No, we started dressing alike.
But it starts like we're starting to dress alike, look alike. It's surprising that I am not here in a yellow blouse, right?
In case anybody's super nosy on YouTube, we have very amazing shoes on, okay?
Yes, I didn't know. You can't see it. But, you know, as Stacey introduced the podcast, right, one of the things we try to do in this podcast is tell the whole story of us, because on the international stage, part of our stories is being told. And one of the things you hear about the heritage from which our guest today is from, Jamaicans. You hear a lot about that they are hustlers. But what you don't hear is that behind that hustling, there is system building, there is a diving into knowledge, there is practical information, there's community that sits behind that. And we're really, really happy that we have Justin this morning, because his story is one of those stories that when you go behind the scenes, you actually see someone who has been very deliberate about what he wanted to build, but also did the work. So started off hustling. Actually started off because his parents said he had to go to school, so he went to engineering, right? And then really starting off doing the grit work, the grind work in the DJ arena, carrying the boxes, apprenticeship almost, just learning the systems, but then starting to look around at what were the opportunities and drawing into his past in engineering, and then going into the corporate world and taking the lessons learned from the corporate world, and now building an entire system in a space that really very few of us think about. So we are so happy to have on the podcast this morning, and I'll use his current title. He is the founder and chief technical officer of WRTH, and it's spelled slightly differently. It's
WRT.
WRTH. And
Only the cool folks spell it like that. Right, Justin?
But Justin also is in the middle of building an entire platform around an ecosystem around collectibles. So Justin, welcome to the We Whistle podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with two of my new favorite people.
Yeah,
We'll claim that. We'll own that.
claim that. So let's go back a little bit before you got to this point. Tell us a little bit about Justin, the person. How did you get? How did this journey all start?
So like it's people always kind of look at where you are, and this thing is kind of like an overnight thing. But my journey really goes back to like childhood, right? So there's been always two different loves of my life, is like music and tinkering with things, right? So growing up, my parents listened to like the old school reggae, old school dancehall, the R&B
What's your
vibes.
favorite? Like, what's a song they played on repeat growing up?
So like me and my mom have like our song, and it's It Takes Two to make a thing.
Yeah. We put that in the background. Yes.
Yeah. So that's our
it.
song. And then with my dad is Let Me Clear My Throat.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah.
A proper grown. Let me
clear my throat. Yeah. So like when I think about my parents, like those are like the two songs. Yeah. So growing up, a love of music, and then I was a kid that loved puzzles, playing with Legos, that kind of stuff. Fast forward to going from middle school, from elementary into middle school. My mom, we had a very eclectic musical background, right? So the Caribbean stuff, of course, the hip hop, but then also like jazz, right? So she took me to this jazz,
Like most Caribbean homes, right?
Yeah.
You find there's a eclectic music, wide range. Yep.
No, for sure. So she took me to this jazz concert down here in Miami at Daring Estates, and I saw Boney James, which is like a famous saxophonist, play, and I was like, that's what I want to do.
Ooh. So you grew up in the States.
Yeah, yes,
And your parents are Jamaican.
yeah. So my mom's Jamaican, my dad's American.
Ooh, so really,
You're a Jamaican.
Yeah,
you're a Jamaican,
I'm a
a real
Jamaican.
true Jamaican.
Yeah, I'm a true Jamaican. But super close to my Caribbean roots for sure. I go to Jamaica at least 2-3 times a year.
I would ask you what your favorite Jamaican word is, but I know what mine is, but I can't say it on air. It's like
no,
that.
let's keep it PG this morning. Well, not really. No, what is your favorite Jamaican word
I think my favorite Jamaican word
or phrase?
is Irie.
Yeah.
Irie.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that how you're feeling this morning?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Irie. It's
yeah.
Irie
The
man.
weather's nice. Everything's irie. It's
Yeah.
a good word. It's a good
So
word.
you started up in that kind of eclectic background, and then what happened?
Then what happened is, parallel, same thing. So I was doing music in school, but I was also doing engineering. And those are two of my loves, and I was able to kind of grow both of them. Going into like high school, college, I was starting to like DJ some stuff. My uncle, as you mentioned, growing up, he was a DJ back in the day. So he would like carry the crates and do the house parties and the birthday parties and that kind of stuff. So that got me interested in that space. And then a couple of my other friends were a little bit older, were like messing around with like virtual DJ and stuff like that too. So I started DJing birthday parties and like some school stuff, right? So that was my love for it in high school, going to college. And then um, you know, in high school I was studying engineering, but as you mentioned, my parents actually wanted me to do like medical. So I started off in college in medical. I hated it. It wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I went towards hospitality and marketing, right? And that was like my entertainment side, because like in high school we were throwing parties. Down here we started throwing parties, and I was the kid on campus that would like fill up the school bus and take them to the Juves back in the day and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of grew into, me trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do in life. I had moved away from Miami for a little bit and came back, and I was trying to figure out, what my path looked like. This was like around like 2014, 2015. And one of my good friends, DJ Genesis, Guyanese, shout out to DJ Genesis.
Shout out to Guyana.
Yeah, shout out to
Guyana's
Guyana.
heritage.
GT Massive. He's actually the official DJ for the Florida Panthers.
Very cool.
Two-time
Very
champion.
cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
We still have spots for podcasts.
Yeah.
In case you want to come on. We
Yeah,
haven't have we had any Guyanese guests yet? No.
No,
We
not
have- we
yet.
have
We have Colin
Colin
coming
soon,
up. Yes,
but-
Okay.
yes.
Can you plug that?
Yeah, you definitely have to have Chris on the podcast. He's an amazing guy. Great story as well. Yeah, so I started hanging out with him, and he was at that time he was doing like a lot of house parties, a lot of birthday parties, a lot of corporate stuff, and so I'd help him. Same thing, back before, like I'd help him set up, carry the speakers, and then before the party would start, I would start, doing the early warm, right, just messing around, and it got me back into that space, because like when I was away, I wasn't DJing. I was kind of doing events, but not actually DJing them. And then that grew into me saying, okay, well, I think I want to take this serious, right? Because I didn't know what it was I wanted to do with my life, and like I saw a path through him, right? That like, okay, he's able to do this full time and make a good living, right? So I was like, okay, let me take this serious. So that's why I did. And at the time, from my engineering background, it's like anytime I'm going to go into any space, I try to like reverse engineer it, right? So I looked at like, okay, like who are the top DJs, like not just in the Caribbean, but like in the world,
Right.
right? And like, what does that look like to do it at its highest level? And for me, it's like, okay, if you Google highest paid DJs in the world, it's like the Calvin Harris, the Tiesto, the Diplo, because they're not just DJs, they're artists as well.
Right.
Right. So I tell people all the time, it's like nobody's.
They're almost architects too, right?
Yeah.
They're almost architecting it, building it as they're doing it,
Yeah.
and leaving like that blueprint you're talking about.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's like, well, I say success leaves clues, right? So it's like whenever you want to go into any kind of industry, there's somebody, for the most part, you're not the first one to do most things, right?
Right.
So it's like you kind of take a step back and say, okay, who are the best examples of how to do this, right? And then like who also screwed it up. So you, right? So it's like
Yes.
you figure out both sides, right? You figure out like
Miss
what
the
to do and
potholes.
then
Yeah.
what
Miss
not
me
to
with
do.
that, yeah.
Right. So I looked at that, and those guys, like I said, they were artists. So I was like, because I would say it's like nobody's walking on stage at while Calvin Harris is playing at Ultra and be like, hey, can you play a new Cardi B? Right. Like they're coming to see Calvin Harris play Calvin Harris or do what he does. So I was like, okay, that's what I need to do. So started off doing a free once a month bring your own bottle party. It's like a free cooler fed once a month in Miami, called Good Vibes Only. And that kind of started growing, right? So that grew into like a weekly event, and then it grew into like international. And then from me starting to do that event, I started to build my following as a DJ, right? So I do like my own remixes, and I'd have a couple other parties. and people started to notice that I had a following here, so they started to like the way I played, so they booked me for their events, right? And then out of town people would come in, and I started playing in New York, playing in Atlanta, Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, London, Toronto, all over the place, and it was a really fun journey. In that time, also started a production company with two of my friends, and we started. It was kind of like filling a gap that we saw when it came to Caribbean events down here. Not to say that the events were bad, right? Because like I think Miami has one of the strongest Caribbean
Sure.
scenes outside of like actual being on island, but we just wanted to add a different flavor to it,
Yeah.
right? And
There are three things that you're seeing that I want us to pause and reflect on, right? So the first thing you talked about, when you're looking at whatever you want to do in life, you reverse engineering, right? You look at where you want to get to, and then figure out how we get there. What are the steps to get there? The second thing you said that I really wanted to pause the conversation, you said success leaves clues, right? So you study what works and you study what does not work. And then there's a number of skills that you're bringing to the table, from events planning to filling the gaps, to really succeeding and growing and trial. Because not everything was successful, right?
No,
But
of course not.
it's incremental, yes, incremental growth, yes. Continue, please. But
Oh wait, I
wanted
want to build on that first, right? Because I want to turn it also into a question. Last night, like I mentioned, we had our first capital circle where we brought leaders together, and we had a couple people on the hot seat. So on the hot seat, they presented a challenge or an opportunity or something that they're working on, and then we opened the floor to all of the other leaders to actually weigh in from their different vantage points and perspectives. And a couple of things came up, and I want to build on what Denise just said in terms of like best practices to the other side of it, which is the fear, right? The reluctance to a couple of things. One, and I want you to talk about how you've overcome that as a founder, because even in our work, we're new founders. We've given global advice to global leaders, global founders on how to do it, but we're now doing it.
Yes.
And sometimes like this morning we were joking, but it's hard work. It's hard in a way that's unlike any hard I've ever done, including
I mean,
birthing, right?
If you think about it, we're preparing for a lot of leaders to come into a room and pulling out the information and then getting ready for the podcast.
Yeah.
And, but it's hard. That's Stacey's saying.
And so here was what came up yesterday, and I want you to kind of help all of us, right? Like teach us a little bit. One, it's almost like I want to perfect it before I go out there, right? What I love about your story is you recognize early when things weren't for you, whether it was your degree
Medicine.
or right, and you stepped back and you're like, oh, it's not for me. I'm going to try something different, right? Almost with in a sense of like, it takes courage to do that, right? Even if you might fail at the new thing. So what do you say to people that are on that precipice of, I want to try something new, but I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know what I do with all the things I've done before that I thought would take me wherever. And now I'm standing here like, oh shit, it's not what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
How are you moving into spaces? How are you bringing people together around, some would consider some of the things you say, like, Justin, why would you even do that? Like, who's going to come to that? And you're like, no, man, I'm going to try it, right? Like, what is your advice to people, to leaders who are in spaces that maybe they're at the top of the mountain and they're looking around and they're like, I don't want to be here anymore. What do I do?
I think there's a lot of thoughts there. So let me try to work through this. I think that
He's reverse engineering
Yes.
it.
Engineering his answer.
Yes.
So I mean, I think one part was before we even get to the like coming down the mountain, right? Because like you have to figure out, if it's even the right one to climb in the first place, right? And I think a lot of times people get to that top of the mountain and they realize that it's not where they want to be, but they probably realize that like halfway up, right? So I think that the real unlock is like one, never be afraid to climb any mountain, right?
Oh, I love that.
Because like if at the bottom, right, you can't really see the full summit, so you don't know if it's the right one, right? But if somebody's climbed it before, then for the most part, there should be a pathway up, right? And that's what, like, going back to like the point of like being afraid to try something. Like one of my biggest superpowers is just thinking that I can do anything,
Because most of the times you can.
right? And my thing is like if somebody has done it before, then if it's humanly possible. So for the most part, if you put in at least the same amount of effort or more going in the general direction, then you can usually accomplish the same things. Going back to success leaves clues, like that's the path, right? So there's usually when you're climbing a mountain, there's certain paths. Like you don't have to go and try to create your own. Just figure out where, like, and if you're in most industries, there's also the guides, right? So like you don't have to even know the top person in your industry, but more than likely they're probably on a podcast, right? Or they've written books, or they've
mentioned
done
YouTube
speech,
University,
or the YouTube
right?
University,
Yeah.
right? So there's those things
Yeah.
to help you navigate it. But I think a lot of times people will get halfway up the mountain, see the picture, maybe not 100% clear, but maybe 75%, and realize they're in the wrong space or climbing the wrong mountain, and just continue to climb it because of ego, because of feeling like wasted effort. My suggestion is just climb back down. Once you get there, right, is you know that it's not where you want to be. And I think that one of the things along this journey, right, I've done a lot of stuff in between getting here. One of the things that I do is I work with kids and teach them music, right? How to be DJs, how to be producers, songwriters, play instruments, and then also like the business side of it, right? And the first lesson that I teach with kids, especially younger kids these days, they just care about money, right?
Yes.
But
That
you
is
know,
so important.
right?
It
So
is
like
important.
right?
So,
So like
it's not just about
Yeah.
the DJing, or it's not just about the things that, the skill, but it's also thinking about the business
right.
behind it and how to get good at the business.
And earlier
behind it.
in their life,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Earlier and earlier and earlier. So it becomes ingrained in us, and it's not something that clicks for us in our 40s or 50s or 60s, right?
Right.
And also to the bringing together of it's thinking about money strategically is something that I think sometimes we shy away from, but you're there with them, teaching them the skills and to think about the money.
For sure. But before I even get into that lesson of like, okay, this is the top 5 richest artists and this is how you make money and all that, the first slide on that presentation is a picture of John Lennon, right? And his quote that he has, because he has a famous quote that when he was young in elementary school, the teacher asked him, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, happy. Right? And she said that he didn't understand the assignment, and he told her that he didn't understand life. Right? So it's like even before, you have to think about the skills, you have to think about the money, you have to think about all this stuff. But I think, one of the most important things that you can do in life is find something that makes you happy. Right?
Bro,
And
you know what's a toxic trait? When you say something so profound and I come off track with everything else I'm thinking. That was amazing.
That's very. But you know what though? It's also
but it's
an
simple,
important.
right?
It's
But it's
simple.
powerful.
It's an important reminder. Stacey and I were
Yeah.
reflecting on our own journey, right?
Last week.
Last week we were reflecting on how hard it is to build, but we also said the beauty about what we're doing brings us so much joy. And we should never forget the joy that it brings us. And here you are saying, you start every lesson with if you're mentoring someone or with the children, is
Does it make
joy,
you
happy. That's the ultimate outcome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think especially if you're on the entrepreneur side, right? If you're trying to build a business, realistically, if you're starting a business, you should be thinking that I'm going to do this for the next 10, 15, 20 years
This
of my
part.
life,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah.
if you're not doing something that at its core makes you happy, you're not going to give it your best, right? So when I think somebody looking, going back to the mountain, right? It's like you start climbing the mountain because you think at the top you're going to find joy, right? You're going to find, that thing that makes you happy. But once you start going down that path, if it's not something that is going to, like, you realize at 50%, this isn't actually what I want to be doing, right? So, don't continue down the path because you're not going to get happier, right? It's like, it's exploring a new hobby, right? It's trying a new food. Right? It's like, okay, so you try the new foods because you haven't had it before. Some people say they like it. Some people say they don't, but you want to test it out for yourself. If you don't like it, don't keep on eating it.
Justin, no, but Justin.
There's two quotes that come up for me. So I'm born in Trinidad, right? Our parents, listen, as a mom of American children who grew up in a Caribbean home, right? I watch my friends, no offense to my friends, I love all of you, but they will ask their kids, what do you want to eat? And give them options, right? In our house, what my mom cook, what mommy cook, that's it.
Yeah.
And so she said, to your point, if you try it, if you don't like it, spit it out. If you don't like it, lay down by it. But nowhere on the option sheet was choices.
Here's another option. No. But even as you're talking to, right, the old cliches come to mind, right? So like Stacey's relating it to a story at home, but like I'm listening to what you're saying, and you talk about getting to the top and the top of the mountain and finding happiness there, and you're saying absolutely not. It really is the journey and not
It's
the
the
destination.
climb. Oh God,
It's the climb.
Cyrus.
Oh my God, it's Miley
it's the climb.
Cyrus's. It's the climb, but
darn
it's
it.
true though.
Yeah.
And how many of us stay in the climb that's not serving us, and we're not happy and we're miserable, and that amounts to our lives, right?
So there's this phrase. Last night, one of the leaders was talking about a challenge that they're grappling with. And I didn't ask the question, and in hindsight, I should have. I didn't want to have it sound mean, but I wanted to at some point say, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
Which is
Yes.
essentially,
Same.
Yeah.
I remember, I forget what tech company it was. Sometimes in tech, when they're doing an innovative project and it's in prototype and all of that stuff, and you're pouring millions, sometimes even billions into it, and you have a team and you have eyes on it, and your ego is involved in it and your identity. And to your point, you're halfway up the mountain and it's like, bro. But most people keep pouring into it,
Yes.
thinking that something is going to be different. There was and I don't know if it was a Harvard Business Review study or whatever, but they said this small tech company actually did a funeral for the project.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
they
I've seen-
actually would have a cake
Yeah.
and invite people to come and talk about what they loved about the project and the origin story and lay
And
the
lay to
thing to
rest.
rest
Yeah.
and
Yes.
move on.
Wow.
What do you say? I want to ask you a hard question. What do you say to critics? Because in the industries that you're in, I'm sure everybody have an opinion about what you doing, how you doing it, what song you're playing, if you're using the right bass. I'm joking, but not joking. How do you navigate?
what the critics have
Yeah.
to say, what people see.
So to be honest, I don't really take advice from people that I wouldn't want to be like, and I don't really take advice from people that haven't done shit.
Yeah.
That
He doesn't
part.
take advice from people who haven't done shit. But if you want,
I mean,
all right, let me put him on
Take intermission.
Let me put him on eloquently, right? Brené Brown in her book says, if you're not in the arena with me fighting, get out of my life,
Guys,
right?
somebody has to come burp me.
No, but please, Justin, as we take the intermission, yes.
I mean,
You don't take advice from people
Who doing this shit?
yeah, I mean,
who
like,
don't matter,
Yo,
right?
man,
Yeah,
you break
I
my
mean-
jaw. I'm laughing so hard. But no, you're right.
I mean, to be honest, because like the thing is, everybody has an opinion, right?
yeah, man.
And most of the time when people say stuff, I say, all right, cool, yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And why take
Yeah.
advice from people who've never been there to the destination you're going? Why?
It's
Then-
it's,
yeah.
it's like, it's like
Like people have advice on this podcast, and I'm like, have you ever done a podcast? Has you?
It's
Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Let's bring us back on track. Let's bring us back on track.
Do we have to? No, yes,
yes,
we do.
yes. So we're bringing you back on track now. So you moved from hustler to builder. Because infrastructure, deliberately thinking about things, and that took you to significant success in the space of DJing. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So, from going down that rabbit hole, like I said, and figuring out who are the top DJs, I said, what does that look like for me? Right. So I had the following in the Caribbean space. I was like, okay, so if I do that same kind of formula that they did, what I should have a similar success. Right. So, I started off with doing remixes. I was musical and also the tech side. So I think that's another reason why I'm good with the production is because it's literally computer programs. Right. So I know how once I understand how something works, I know how to kind of manipulate it to
bringing
get the
back that
result of it.
tinkering love
Yeah,
of tinkering.
Exactly.
Engineering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like they really call it audio engineers.
Right.
So, I was able to quickly understand the formula for how things worked in the space, and so I started off with remixes. So I do a lot of things like putting like a Kess on an R&B beat, right, and like blending those genres or like doing reverse.
Kess on R&B. Let's take a
Sexy.
minute
You want yeah, it's I get. I'll say you guys.
Kess in my back pocket and walk around. I don't even care. No shame.
Hey, and that sounds like a podcast with Kess in her back pocket. Anyway,
Anywhere I go, I'll take him out and be like, "What do you think about that?"
Out of control this morning in this podcast, Justin. Yes. So
Yeah, so I would create a lane where it's like, because I'm here in the States, I'm in a lot of rooms where it might be Caribbean people, but you might not know it, right? So I'd be playing a happy hour, but then I'd play a song like I said, like a Kesson R&B beat, and you hear that one Trinity girl, it's like, oh gosh.
yes. Oh God!
It's like you turned on a light in them, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh God! Oh gosh! Yeah.
Yo, y'all love Kess.
Justin, this is the tension Whistle is trying to solve, right? The tension of us, of that Caribbean woman that you didn't necessarily know she was Caribbean rooted, heard my red man. No, I'm kidding. Heard Kess and look at you, and you had a moment of recognition. I see you. You see me. It's the same way Denise and I looked at each other. It's the same way when we talked for the first time. How do we, as the Caribbean diaspora, and you've been in the Whistle ecosystem. You presented at one of our capital sessions, right? How do we, as a diaspora, do all the things we do? We're not saying stop doing what you're doing, but how do we lean more into the cultural identity as what it is, which is our superpower, that gene that makes us different, that allows us to be resilient, that allows us to say, I'm going to make something from nothing, that allows someone like you to be like, I Irie, I happy. I'm at the halfway point of the mountain. You know what? I don't like it here. I'm going back down, look around, start over. How does it tell naysayers if you ain't doing shit, don't talk to me about it? But it's also a braggadociousness. It's also a sense of confidence.
Right? Mm-hmm.
How do you navigate the spaces that you're in tech that people don't necessarily look like us, but also still maintain the Justin gene?
Factor.
I think that for the most part, I haven't really been in too many rooms where people weren't excited to like have our culture be a part of it.
I love that. Say more about that.
Right? Because
Do you curate or do you just attract that?
Because I think people actually just love the Caribbean. Like, it's cool.
Yeah. We cool.
We're cool.
Whether we're wearing earrings or not, Justin.
Right.
One earring or two. We're cool.
So
People love us. People love our culture.
Yeah, love people.
That's an
So do you
advantage.
think
People love the
do you think
culture.
because you used to be a DJ and you had that visibility and that you're somehow it's associated with you, that you naturally attract people like us like, or do you think it's just the spaces that you're in? Because there's some of us, I will be very honest and claim this. Up until a few years ago, I was not culturally uh, a,
Focused.
focused. So I would hear Marshall coming or somebody like that and go to have fets and get it out my system. Literally one good fet every
Yeah.
couple of months, cool. One hits up to a roti shop, cool. But my Caribbeanness, the thing that actually makes me me, and that has taken me to the successes. And then I'm saying this, I'm using myself as the like guinea pig here, but really it's millions of us across the world. How do we embrace this in a way that allows us? And here's a secret that's going to happen. When you fully embrace it, you're going to go to mountains you've never actually envisioned.
No, for sure. I think what you guys are doing with Whistle, like that's it, right? So in the States, there's this club in college called CSA,
Yes.
right? So and around Florida, there's FCSA, and
So
then,
that's the
and then
Caribbean Student
yeah,
Association.
Caribbean
and
Student
yeah.
Association. And there's chapters in New York, other places around the U.S., and that really started because of that, right? It was like a lot of those early first generation Caribbean students that were away from college, and they wanted that community, they wanted that that synergy. People that understood their struggle, understood their accents, understood their culture, that could cook a curry chicken for them too, or chicken
See,
curry.
he
or
said
whatever.
curry
Curry
chicken.
chicken. And
Did
not
not.
chicken curry.
What's your DJ again? His DJ friend's name?
Genesis.
So DJ Genesis, when you come on to our podcast in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a whole debate on that. But no,
Right. So I think what you guys are doing with Whistle is that, but for the next phase of life. And I
Right.
think creating these kind of rooms, these kind of podcasts, these kind of focuses is definitely needed. I think we talk about, people always talk about, okay, well, soca music isn't this or isn't that, but if you look at like the entire ecosystem that goes along with taking something global or like having impact, and you need the podcast, you need the editorial, you need the journalists, you need the videographers, the documentaries, like all these things add to the culture.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're talking about like the hip hop culture or like Black American culture, like they have the magazines, they have millions of podcasts, right? And they have not just that for their music specifically, but they also have like the business equivalent for that, right? So like Earn Your Leisure, like that would be the urban kind of podcast for business, right? So
Right.
people that are in that space, they're focused on that, and that's the ecosystem that
So
they're
that's
helping
a
to build to
system
learn about.
builder in you,
Yes.
looking at all of the things that we need. So in a way, not only are you thinking as an engineer, you're thinking as an architect.
but also as a Caribbean diaspora leader.
Ah,
I want to
Caribbean.
press you a little bit, right? Because sometimes, like we live and breathe Whistle and Whistle Global and talk to people every day, and sometimes, we're like, are we drinking our own Kool-Aid? But for someone like you that has traveled the world and done so many amazing things and talked to thousands of people, right? Hundreds of thousands possibly if you count all the fets, right? When we take this and when this goes to its full potential and outlives Denise and I and our early founders, right, including yourself, where do you see this going for generations and for like the Caribbean diaspora? And remember, it's loosely estimated to be about 10 million of us globally. Here in Florida, in Broward County, which is probably the biggest Caribbean diaspora, it just crossed 2 million of us. We are one of the most highly educated, like we're everywhere, right? And our kids also need it, right? How do you see this really changing the trajectory of the diaspora? Dream with us.
Going back to same thing, reverse engineering, right? And looking at what it takes to actually build an ecosystem, whatever your feelings might be, look at the Jewish community, right? Like they have the JCC,
Yes.
right? So like their kids go to school, and then after that they go to JCC to learn about their culture, to learn about finances, to learn about all the things like that makes them successful as a people, right? So having those kind of frameworks that in Miami, there should be maybe a Saturday school for Caribbean kids that they can learn how to cook, they can learn different things, they can learn that kind of stuff, right?
And
Still can't
Because
make
like
roti.
it's still, you know what I mean? Because like
oh my gosh, you really cannot make roti, Stacey.
Oh boy, I can eat it.
right? Because the thing is, like, if we don't protect and honor and teach our culture, nobody else is, right? They're not teaching anything about the Caribbean in school.
I want to stay
Here.
with you on that point because one of the things that you said that really inspired me in one of our early conversations, I want to talk about the legacy part of it. You currently work with young people in the I would call it the entertainment space, but you also have a dream of doing something in this space. Tell us about the legacy part of you and where does that take us, and even within the context of an ecosystem like Whistle.
Yeah, so one of my dreams is to build the pipeline for Caribbean music as a whole to have true penetration on the international level, right? So I'm part of the Recording Academy. That's the people that run the Grammys. I'm a voting member. I've been a part of it for the last 6 years now. So,
Hold on.
Yes,
Please,
just real
let's
chill,
pause.
real
Let's
cash, real
pause that.
nonchalant,
Real
Justin.
casual. Sitting with us is someone who's part.
Can I ask you
of
to
it.
do something unexpected? What are the 3 most biggest badasses accomplishments that you have that you don't talk about? I don't know what it is about us. We're so humble.
He just casually mentions.
No,
yes.
but it's important, right? Because we always talk about, and every guest we have on here, we talk about if we can't see it, we can't be it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if our people can't see people doing the things that you guys are doing.
So, Justin, do us a favor. As you tell us the story about your
Weave in.
legacy, right? Your legacy.
Justin is squirming.
Your
He's like,
legacy
no,
ambition. Do not,
Hold back.
please, let us be inspired by you. So the first thing we learn in this journey is that you have credibility to leave a legacy, which is you sit in spaces that vote on the academy. Yeah. Continue, please.
Wow.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah. Which part am I doing right now?
You're telling us you have dreams
We
about
are on
legacy.
the track right now.
You're telling us about your dreams
Yeah.
for legacy for the next generation.
Yeah. So there's this thing that people in the industry will say soca needs its own category at the Grammys, and why doesn't soca have a Grammy yet, and blah blah blah. And it's like they're like, okay, how did Afrobeat get a category at the Grammys first? Afrobeats didn't get a category at the Grammys. African music got a category at the Grammys, right? So like under that is Amapiano, Afro House, Guam, Afro Beats, 3-step, all of these categories make up African music, right? And I think that one of the things that holds back the Caribbean is that it's soca, dancehall, reggae, and I don't want to hear this, I don't want to hear that. But like if you look at the African diaspora, how they present themselves internationally, they present themselves as a unified unit, right? So that's how they're able to.
And they're even probably more textured than the Caribbean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So I think that one of the things that the Caribbean needs to do is actually come together and learn how to package the music, right? Learn how to monetize it correctly, learn how to deal with the paperwork correctly, right? Like, so because of the spaces I'm in, one of my mentors in music, he's a Grammy award-winning producer from Cayman Islands, right? So he was in LA. He did work with some major artists like, I think he did like Lady Gaga, Eminem, like some crazy stuff. Because of those spaces, I've done stuff for like Disney, Nickelodeon, Coca-Cola. So like when they're sending out these briefs.
Pause. His second big accomplishment.
We're gonna get 3 out to you today.
The second, and this is why we talk about our people sitting behind big accomplishments. So he's done work for Disney, Nickelodeon,
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. So
I've done
big brands.
Yeah.
Big up, Justin.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, when they're sending out these briefs, they're like, okay, we want a song like Fast Wine. We want a song like Hello. So like they understand it, right? Because
Sure.
because like they're peeping
And they're
what we're
looking
doing.
for patterns that
And
have worked.
Right.
Back to what you said, thing one. What's working?
Right. So like they understand it, but the thing is a lot of times our people miss out on those opportunities because they don't have their paperwork corrected. Right. So I've heard stories of major songs being picked up in some major placements, and because the artist didn't understand the paperwork, they actually got cut out of the deal. Right. So like one of the things that happened to me is one of my first rhythms before I got hip to the game and I was doing it out of passion, one of my first projects I ever put out, it was like a rhythm that had like 10 songs on it, probably too many songs. But one of the songs, it was the most popular song, but I kind of forgot about it and like was doing other stuff. And in the time of that happening, I was working for an artist. He was working with another producer in the UK, and he was like, I really like this song, but I want my other producer to add some vibes to it. I was like, cool. So I sent him the stuff. Project went out. Going down. Continued focusing on DJing, making other stuff. Wasn't really paying too much attention to the song. Right. A couple of years later, I'm leaving New York from Labor Day Carnival. I'm in the airport, and I scrolling on Instagram, and I hear the song playing in
just randomly.
Yeah, just randomly, right?
Yeah.
In a video.
Nobody give you a heads up,
yeah,
nothing.
Yeah, and it was like in a Mountain Dew commercial. And I was like, wait, oh shit! I was like, oh, wait, hold up.
Not even Fanta, like Mountain Dew is a big deal.
Yeah,
that's
right?
Pepsi.
Yeah, I mean, so like I knew, so like somebody got paid for that. I didn't get paid for it, right? And then going down the rabbit hole, I found out the song also had a placement in Zumba. Right, and I know what the Zumba checks are like because I have songs like after that. I understood the things, and I got paid for it, but I didn't get paid for that. And in those type of situations, the money it takes to go after it with a lawyer is like it doesn't make sense, right? But my one of my missions is to set up the ecosystem that we can find talented Caribbean artists, talented Caribbean musicians, talented Caribbean producers, songwriters, and create an ecosystem where everybody can collaborate together. They understand the business of how it's worked, of how it's supposed to work, right, and how to do it on an international level. And then, I'll be in a position where I can also back it monetarily.
Love that. So you're talking about building an entire ecosystem for the next gen and people coming up. I want to stick with the ecosystem because we've spoken a lot about your space in the music industry, but you're actually building a completely different ecosystem now in a tech space, in a very unexpected space. So we think until we go back into your background. So Justin, tell us what you're working on now and how did you get there? This whole ecosystem, Mr. Ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the ecosystem thing, I think that one of my traits of the things that I always just cared about is just building community, right? So, if you look at all the kind of things that I've done, all of them kind of fall under that bucket of just building community. And so the community that I'm building right now is for the collector space, right? So I grew up as a collector, collecting baseball cards, Pokemon cards, sports memorabilia. My dad is also a huge watch collector. So that got me interested in that space. And about 10 years ago, before my last corporate job, before I went full-time into DJing and the event scene, I was head of digital marketing e-commerce for one of the largest buyers and sellers of high-end jewelry in the world, right? So like the Patek Philippe's, the Omegas, the Rolexes, the Cartier stuff, multi-million-dollar company, and I ran all the digital marketing and e-commerce for it.
The third.
Fourth. We're now on fourth. Yep.
So,
so a platform builder, ecosystem, e-commerce ecosystem builder, collector.
But what I love about what you said, I think a lot of us navigate life, even until the end of our life, and we're looking back on our life, whether with regret or not, hopefully not. But we have yet to, for many of us, figure out what it is we're actually good at. And you actually said, you stripped down everything. And you probably caught it, but I caught it, which was you said, I actually just love to build communities.
Mm-hmm.
And from that wellspring, with that actual superpower, you were able to spawn multiple things across multiple decades that may not have looked like what it was, which was bringing people together around a common goal to do big things or something, some flavor of that, right? And whether the access point was music, vibes, collectibles, tech, education. And I think for a lot of us, whether we are communicators or writers or music or whatever your jam is, and that's one of the things that struck us about when we talked to you in the beginning, was there's a simplicity in how you knit together your life story. And it could be a couple of things. You've done it so many times, it's natural for you.
He went up the mountain, came down,
But
went up another
yeah,
mountain.
but what you go back to is what you loved as a child. And I think even when we navigate conversations with people, it's an important thing that I think for listeners, for all of us, is what actually made me happy. The first slide.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of us, it seems so simple that we negate it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
So, Justin, as we start to wrap up, how can we? You're now in the collectible space. You're building an ecosystem in a very high end, sort of high value space. Tell us about that, and how can people find you?
Yeah. So what that led me to, right? Like I was saying, quickly, I know we're kind of wrapping up. After pandemic, I was at the top of the scene when it came to music. I had the song Hoope that was 2020 Carnival. I landed in Trinidad, and the song was playing on 3 radio stations at the same time. Right?
Congratulations! I think we're now on 6.
Right. And to this day, that's one of my biggest songs. And what happened is, that was 5 years into me saying, okay, I want to do this full time. I was literally booked out for every carnival for the year. As we all know, 2020, world shut down. Right?
And you had to climb down the mountain.
Yeah, so I had to climb down the mountain, and it's like, okay, once the world opens back up, is this what I want to continue to do, or do I want to figure out something else, right? So I fell back on my other love of tech, and same thing, reverse engineering. I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to work for anybody else. So what does it look like to build a successful tech company, right? So usually you work on something that you care about, something that you understand, have a unique insight on, and something that you can build. So initially, I was going to build something in the music space, but I realized that wasn't going to be like a investable venture-backed business. Like, it would be a passion project. So in that time, one of my friends, I was DJing some of his events. His cousin owned a sneaker store in Wynwood, and he was having, he said, my cousin's having some problem with his website. Can you go check him out? And see if you can help him out. He knew that I was in the tech space. So I met with his cousin, my co-founder now, Dream. Shout out Dream, sneaker buyers. And, the problems that he was experiencing was the same problems I was experiencing 10 years ago when I was working for the jewelry company, right? So I was like, okay, if nobody solved these issues in the last 10 years, this is a massive market, right? So like the core market that we're going after right now is like the collectible space, which is like a $500 billion market in itself.
500 billion.
But the overall market is like physical assets and inventory, right? Which is like a $4 trillion market.
Okay,
right?
that $1 trillion again. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, that is a big enough market that if we have a decent hypothesis and the right team, we can start going up the mountain and we'll find our way to the top, right? Even like in the tech space, you don't even have to get all the way to the top, right? It's like I can build a company and capture 3% of the market, and it can be $1 billion company, right? Because it's so big. So like in that space, going down the rabbit hole, fixing the things that we saw broken. So what Worth is we are building for the future of what commerce will look like. Right. So now everybody's talking about AI and agentic commerce and all these type of things. Right now, AI is really good at coding in certain tasks, but eventually, we see a world where everybody will have their own AI agent, right? That just understands that, you guys have the podcast coming up. You need a new outfit, and the studio has these colors, so they're going to order a shirt in your size that matches the color, right? And make sure you guys don't have the same one, right?
It's gonna happen.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Just
And-
matching shoes.
right?
Yeah.
And they'll need to know which store has it in your sizes, and that can reach to your house in time for you to leave to get here,
Yep.
right? And then it'll also book the studio time, coordinate with here, make sure that it's open, and all those type of things, right? So in order for all that stuff to happen, you need good data and infrastructure, right? And so the data and infrastructure for the collectibles and asset and like real world asset market was already broken. So in the future, it would have been worse.
Yep.
So what we're doing is we're solving that problem for now, so that businesses, like most of our businesses are 7 or 8 figure businesses that are moving hundreds of thousands of items a day, that are sometimes up to $1 million items.
Right.
So building all that data and infrastructure layer for them to be able to manage these assets, track the value of them in real time because they fluctuate like stock markets, lists across different marketplaces, being able to transact in store, manage their team, manage all their finances and everything. So it's a massive
It sounds
massive
massive.
undertaking.
So how can we find you, Justin? How can how can clients, people who are interested in this space, want to understand your world? How can they find you?
Yeah, so I mean, my main form of communication social right now is actually on LinkedIn.
Yes.
So Justin Elliott, which is funny because before this I hadn't update my LinkedIn before like college.
Yes.
but like I got into the space like everybody like, oh, you don't want Instagram? Okay, all right, yeah. Well,
Thanks.
And that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
first place I look for you. I want to say before Denise wraps us up, we've done a lot of arcs in this episode. We was laughing uproariously. We drop a few S bombs, all of that stuff. But for anybody listening, the last 6 minutes that Justin spoke, I'm actually going to do a long form LinkedIn post about this. It was a whole masterclass in the business case that you use to go after $1 trillion industry that potentially can make you $1 billion. You listed everything that you did. Like my consultant, like my analytic brain went into like very curious clinical. I was just observing what you were saying, and it was so thorough that I don't know that if you missed it, I want you to like whoever is really
Just go back
really
to the
interested.
last 6 minutes.
He
Yes.
told you exactly what he did in order to scale to $1 billion, like exactly the recipe, not the same industry or whatever. From taking your passion to finding a partner, to looking at a problem that hadn't been solved in 10 years, to looking at the market potential, to extrapolating from that market potential what his piece could be given the right tech, data, analytics, partners, to where the right environments would be. Like it was freaking brilliant.
And
Like freaking brilliant.
Yes. And so as we come up to the end of the podcast, I
Thank you.
think what we've learned today was really joyful. And it was one of the happiest throw back your head laughing podcasts that we've had in a while. And that's where Justin begins his journey. And I think as we all grapple with what are we going to do next, or where we are in our spaces, start from what makes you happy. But the happiness is not an easy journey. It is about learning. It is about unlearning. It's about getting halfway up the mountain and then coming back down because it doesn't serve you. If you are at that point in your life, this podcast, I think, as Stacey just mentioned, is really a masterclass about how you bring your entire ecosystem of your life experiences, how you are deliberate, how you give back to the legacy, how you create moments where you grow. Please, if this podcast has inspired you, share it. We need to get the message out about our Caribbean leaders who are globally doing amazing things. And today we uncovered that Justin is certainly one of those global leaders who's doing amazing things. You can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple and on YouTube under We Whistle Global. Thank you. Looking forward. See you next
And
time.
also, if you ever wondered what a whistler looks and sounds like,
Justin. Yes.
thank you for
Yay.
coming.
No, thank you guys
Thank
for
you.
having me. It
Thank
was a
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
wow.